Today we have Father Dionysius Vaz, SJ, provincial of Karnataka Jesuit Province, to enlighten us on this topic. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to offer a brief prayer of thanksgiving in the words of Professor Colin, Xavier University. Loving Creator, we ask for strength and you gave us difficulties to make us strong. We ask for wisdom and you gave us problems to solve. We ask for prosperity and you gave us purpose and brains to use. We ask for courage and you gave us fears to overcome. We ask for patience and you gave us situations where we were forced to wait. We ask for love and you gave us troubled people to help. We ask for justice and you called us to be just and lead with integrity. Lord, we have received nothing that we asked for or wanted, yet we received everything that we needed. For this, we give thanks. Now, over to Father Maxim to introduce to us today's resource person, Father Dionysius Vaz.
My dear fathers, brothers, and reverend sisters, and all well-wishers, the benefactors of Fatima Retreat House, a warm welcome to each one of you for this beautiful webinar. Today's the speaker is Reverend Father Dionysius Vaz. It's a great privilege for me to introduce to you Father Dion. I'm very happy to introduce to you today's resource person, Father Dionysius Vaz, who is well known as Father Dion. He is our provincial of Karnataka Jesuit Province. Father Dion is primarily a formator, a counselor, a spiritual director, a retreat guide, administrator, and wonderful animator. He has a master's degree in pastoral counseling from Loyola University, Maryland, United States of America. He was our vocation promoter, pre-novitiate director, novice master, superior of Bijapur Mission, and before becoming the rector, provincial of Karnataka Province, he was the rector of St. Aloysius College. A man of rich experience, a great visionary and missionary, and special passion for the missions. He is much sought after for courses in counseling, spiritual direction, formation, leadership, psycho-spiritual integration, and so on. Such a wise and intelligent person we have, Father Dionysius Vaz, who will speak to us about the trends, the family trends, especially in post-COVID situation. Now, Father Dion will speak to us around 30 to 40 minutes. And after that, we will have discussion, clarification, questions for 10 minutes, and then we'll wind up. Now, over to Father Dionysius Vaz.
Could I share the screen? Dear friends, good evening and a warm welcome to this very important topic that I've chosen called Family Trends in the COVID and Post-COVID Era. Family has been my line of interest for a long time now. And in many of my courses, I've been starting with family, because I realize that family, whether it's in spiritual direction or in counseling or in prayer, family has contributed much to our life. And family, whether it is functioning or dysfunctioning, can cause problems for us later on in life. We are born in family. We are born in relationships. We are wounded in relationships, but we are also healed in relationships. And therefore, let's begin with family. What am I going to do? I would like to start with the context of family and ask you this question. What has been family for you in the context of COVID-19, when lives and livelihoods are lost, when people are in lockdown, when students are studying and employees are working from home? This is something that we really need to understand and ask ourselves, how are we dealing with this context of the family today? How has family changed, COVID and post-COVID? Families can be a very life-giving force when they are healthy and relatively stressful. A healthy family relationship can have a positive impact on your health and well-being. You look into your own family. We are going to study family as a system, and I will slowly come to it, how family is a system and how that system is functioning or not functioning in your family. Those of you who are sisters, fathers, go back to your own family of origin and ask yourself how that family has contributed to your life and how it has flowed into your relationships in community and in your workplace. Strong family relationships also are a source of comfort, guidance, and strength that you can draw on in times of stress. Likewise, they provide a sense of belonging and unconditional love you are not likely to find anywhere else. Every time I visit home, yesterday I visited home, it reminds me how much family has given me. And I would like to dwell on this. This is a family, what we call is a family genogram or a family structure. The father, the mother, and they have 3 children. I know there are people who are experts in this field, but I'm also doing it for those who are beginners here. 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. Now this is a system. Family is a system. And family system comes from a systems theory. And every system has subsystems. Just as a computer has a system with subsystems called the CPU, the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, these are subsystems. One of the subsystems does not function, the whole system collapses, or the sole system dysfunctions. Similarly, a vehicle, a car, has also a system with subsystems. And therefore, the engine, the radiator, and so on, the clutch, the brakes, and so on, and the steering wheel. One subsystem does not function, the whole system dysfunctions, it does not move. So family is a system with subsystems. What are primarily subsystems? First of all, the spousal subsystem, the relationship between the husband and the wife. What is the relationship between the husband and the wife? Second subsystem is the parental subsystem. How did these 2 people parent these 3 children? Was it authoritarian, very strict and disciplinary? Or was it permissive, 2 lakhs, where children had control over the parents? Or authoritative, where there was gentle and firmness in parenting? So how did these 2, second subsystem is parental subsystem. Third subsystem is the sibling subsystem, the relationship between these 3. How was the sibling subsystem functioning? Was there sibling rivalry or sibling acceptance among the 3? We are a family of 4. And was there sibling acceptance, sibling rivalry? Of course, it changes over time. When you're small, it may be 1. As you grow, it may be different. But how was a sibling acceptance or rivalry? From a system, you also come to understand the birth order. There's an oldest, there's a youngest, there's middle. Often the oldest is the experimented, is the responsible child. The youngest is the pampered, the petted child. Could be responsible, may not be all the time. The middle children are often resilient, adaptable children. We also need to understand the gap between these children. Is there a good gap? Is there good between at least 2 years of a gap or 3 years between the children? Is another important aspect when we study a family system. So family is a social system. It is far more than a collection of individuals sharing a specific physical and psychological space. While families occur in a diversity of forms today there are so many diverse forms of family: alcoholic families, single parent families, joint families, terminally ill families, families where children have all left the nest. So therefore, there are so many diverse forms of families today, and each may be considered a natural social system with properties all its own. And every family has certain rules, certain ascribed and assigned roles for its members, has an organized power structure, has developed intricate overt and covert forms of communication. That means written or unwritten rules, or said and unsaid rules, and has elaborated ways of negotiating and problem solving that permit various tasks to be performed effectively. The meanings and understandings we attribute to events and situations we encounter are embedded in our family's social, cultural, and historical experiences. Our social, our cultural, our historical experiences also affects our families. For example, you think of a family that is from Mangalore or Bangalore, but settled now in Kashmir because the man is a captain or a major in somewhere in Jammu, Kashmir. The meanings and understanding and historical experience will be different for these people because they would have mingled with other cultures. Or a Mangalorean family or a family from a village moving to a metro city will have different experiences, different cultural exchanges, will have different historical experience, and that also affects. I just want to mention a few rules sometimes. Let's take an alcoholic family. Alcoholic families have certain rules and roles. Let's start with roles. If you see roles, you will see there is an addict or the alcoholic. There's a chief enabler. There's a family hero. There's a scapegoat, there's a loner, and there's a mascot at a club. Sometimes it's very clear, if you see an alcoholic family, you'll see these roles being played by each of them. And who is the chief enabler? Often the spouse of the alcoholic, who may fret, fume, but ultimately enable the alcoholic to drink. But becomes the chief enabler, takes on the responsibility of the family. The hero will try to distract from the stigma of the family because of the alcoholism by performing well either in games or in studies and so on. The scapegoat will try to distract by another way, by becoming worse off than alcoholic, by disrupting, maybe by disrupting in class, by not paying attention, following in grades and so on. The loner is the sick child or a lonely child who avoids social relationships. And finally, we have the mascot of the clown who creates fun for the family when the alcoholic is not there. So there are certain roles that happen in dysfunctional families. I gave you an example of an alcoholic family. Rules, if you take rules in alcoholic family, unwritten rules. Unwritten rules is there's a denial of the problem. They will say there's no alcoholism in the family. There's no trust. Trust becomes a big issue for alcoholic children. There's no feeling. You can't feel because there are mixed feelings, anger, shame, guilt, and so on. And they don't feel. They find it difficult to feel. So there are a number of rules. Of course, there are power structures also at work in the family. Now, who has the powers in the family? Is it the father? Is it the mother? Is it both of them? Is it the children having the power structure? Who controls? What are forms of communication? Verbal, non-verbal, sometimes communication, physical. So different forms of communication and how they solve and negotiate problems when there are problems, and how do they understand and make meaning is very important when we study a family as a social system. Let's look at some characteristics of a family system. First of all, if you see, a family is a complex relationship system in which causality is circular and multidimensional. I spoke about family rules. For the most part, unstated but understood by family members, help stabilize and regulate family function. Rules may be descriptive or prescriptive. You know, sometimes there are metaphors. There's a symbol. You know, there may be this family has certain rules. You know, for example, rule of keeping everything neat and clean. Rules of rising and sleeping and getting up and food and so on. Rules. There may be descriptive or prescriptive, both. Descriptive could be metaphors, patterns of change, and prescriptive, what can or cannot be done by people. Second important thing is homeostasis. What a homeostasis is simple as equilibrium. The family is always trying to be in equilibrium. As I said, those roles in alcoholic family is keeping the family in equilibrium. Different roles that people play in an alcoholic family keeps the family in equilibrium and or homeostasis. It is achieved. Our body also tries to be in equilibrium. You know, when we would trip on something, it somehow tries to take equilibrium. When we have a headache, it tries to maintain equilibrium. So the body, just as the body, the family system also is trying to achieve homeostasis, and we'll see how it tries to achieve equilibrium by their interacting processes that helps restore stability whenever threatened, often by activating the rules that define the relationships. Especially during COVID, families have been trying to achieve equilibrium. Some have been dysfunctional, but many families have gone through a phase of dysfunctionality and come to functionality over time. So over time, we have come to certain homeostasis. The third characteristic is a feedback mechanism, where feedback, information, and when changes are called for, negative as well as positive feedback loops may help restore equilibrium. What are these negative and positive changes? Positive feedback. Negative feedback is when there is something negative, the family system will resist the change. Positive feedback, it will adapt something that is coming. For example, let me give you a negative feedback. When everything went online, when there was lockdown, there was a negative feedback. Some of us resisted online change, online classes, work from home, resisted, family systems resisted. Whereas positive feedback, it accommodates. Slowly people have accommodated online as coming in place today. Online, we cannot online or a hybrid model of online and offline is part of. So online negative and positive feedback loops always confront us, and it tries to keep the family in equilibrium. Subsystems I've talked about, like spousal, parental, and sibling subsystems. Boundaries. There are boundaries in a family. There are boundaries between husband and wife. There are boundaries between parents and children. There are boundaries between the children, male and female. There are boundaries, number of boundaries. And boundaries are important in developing ego strength of a child, of everyone. For example, if there are boundaries, sometimes there are abuse. There is abuse within the family. That means the boundary has been violated. Could be sexual abuse, could be physical abuse, it could be verbal abuse. Then verbal abuse, boundaries have been violated. Open and closed systems. Families vary in the extent to which they are open systems. Relatively closed systems run the risk of decay and disorganization. Is family an open system? Is this family system open to other families in relation to other families, in relation to other experiences, other cultures, or is it a closed system? So some characteristics of family system for us to understand. This has been something technical I wanted to start at the very beginning, but now it's going to be very simple. What is a functional family? First of all, functional families, companionship is marriage for love. Marriage is for love. Intimacy and reproduction. Now, these are some traits, 9 traits I put, of a very functional family, very important ingredients that are needed. Ultimately, companionship is most important in marriage. Is there a companionship between the 2 spouses? We have sometimes people break up or divorce. They say we are not compatible. But is there companionship? Second, intimacy and reproduction. Is there intimacy? Intimacy is defined as the ability to lose myself and find myself in the other. The ability to lose myself and find myself in the other. Beautiful definition of intimacy. Only when I lose my ego and find myself in the other, I will really experience intimacy. Ego always wants to get, self always wants to give. And reproduction, do you plan for your family? Is there a plan? Did your parents plan for your family? Or this is an unplanned child? Or children one after another? Is there reproduction? Or today we have what we call families having DINK. DINK is double income, no kids. We do not want kids. We only want, and that family goes through turmoil when they come to midlife. Or it is too late. Later on they want a child. It's too late. Then we come to socialization. How did this family socialize their children? Did they allow them to socialize with the complementary sex? Did they allow them to socialize with the people of other cultures and religions? Socialization. Social support. How was the social support that this family experienced in the neighborhood, in the church, or in the community? Did this family, sometimes this family migrates. Does it receive social support? We have so many migrants today, and they are migrating because of work, because their places do not have Afghanistan. People are migrating now. So do they have social support? They are migrated to Italy, to Africa. Are they having social support? Or some of our families go to the Gulf. Do they have social support? Economic stability. Is there economic stability? Now, COVID has created a lot of turmoil in families because there is no economic stability. People's salaries have been cut. They have been underemployed, or because they have lost their jobs. COVID has created a lot of problems around this. Commitment of parents to children, commitment between the spouses. Is there commitment, a long-lasting commitment? 7th, appreciation. Does this family appreciate their children? Is there appreciation of each other, of the spouses to each other? Or there is put down all the time, only criticism? Therefore, I see today there are 2 types of children: overloved children and underloved children. If I just go back to that, if you go back to that family genogram or that family structure, you will see there were 3 children. But today, many families, there are no 3 children. There's only 1 child. That means the sibling system has not been functioning. There is no sibling system. This child cannot relate with other children. This child has to relate with toys, with gadgets. This child has to relate with peers only, not at home. So, but the difficulty is now these 2 parents appreciate the child and give a lot of appreciation, make this child into a little emperor or empress, and this child becomes overloved. This child becomes overloved with a bloated ego, and with a bloated ego, he always thinks of himself very high and puts down the other. These children also, don't think these children get very good self-esteem. These children get bloated self-esteem, but you puncture their ego with a little criticism, they may commit suicide. On the other hand, a family which is always criticizing, you create underloved children. who are always put down by their parents, who are put down by their teachers, underloved. They will put themselves down and put others up. Eighth, good communication patterns. Has family taught good communication patterns? Has taught social skills and soft skills, how to communicate, communicate words of gratitude and welcome and please and forgive, and how to talk, how to communicate with elders and with peers and with youngsters. Ability to deal with crisis in a positive manner. Family always treats us, especially our parents teach us how to deal with crisis in a positive manner. In case our parents struggled to deal with crisis in a positive manner, always negative, always anxious, always avoiding crisis and avoidance behavior, then the children also develop a similar pattern. We will now look at some of the ingredients of dysfunctional families. Some I put about, I think there are about 14 of them or 15. Child abuse, neglect, physical abuse, verbal abuse, sexual abuse. These are all ingredients of dysfunctional families. Overindulgence and overprotection, I talked about, creating overloved children. Domestic violence, conflict between the spouses. Low frustration tolerance. Low frustration tolerance will come when you give everything the child wants. Do not give everything the child wants. Give what the child needs, not what the child wants. You create, children need to have good frustration tolerance. Submerged tension. Sometimes there's tension. COVID has created a lot of tensions, anxiety, but you put the tensions under the carpet. Denial of conflict or inability to resolve conflict. This family is struggling or denying alcoholism, or denying that the child is not doing well in studies, or denying that this child has gone into drugs today. A lot of families, children have gone into drugs. And therefore denial, just yesterday there was a Mangalore family where the son killed the two parents in Canada. We have these conflicts. It would be interesting to know what this family was all about. Alcoholic and substance abuse in the family. Authoritarian parenting and permissive parenting. We have talked about this. Authoritarian is, everything is controlled, dictatorial by the parent. Permissive is the opposite, where the children control. Untreated mental illness, acute and chronic. Sometimes mental illness runs in the family and they are untreated. It could be single parent families. We have many more today, many single parent families today. People have separated, divorced, or one spouse has died, and therefore single parent families. Confused communicating patterns. This is very, very high today in families, especially families that are in lockdown. When I say lockdown, not when the government is locked down, when everybody is holed up in the family because of study from home and work from home. And there are a lot of confused communicating patterns. You want to tell your child you love the child, but you shout. Or you shout at the child, next moment you hug the child because you are now feeling guilty. Lack of autonomy or privacy. These are small apartments where children today have no autonomy, no privacy. They have no place to play. Or take, for example, slum children, no autonomy, no privacy, slum families. Non-cohesive interactional patterns. There is no warmth among spouses, no warmth between spouses and children, between parents and children. Non-cohesive, there's no cohesion and interactional patterns. Perfectionistic families, we have a lot of them today, where parents push the children to perform beyond their capacities. Rather than discover their child, they are pushing their children to perform. They want them to be instant heroes, instant, like we have instant coffee and instant noodles. They want instant performance, instant grades. If they get 80, they want them to get 90, 95. They are pushing them towards dreams and goals. And this causes perfectionism in the families. Skewed relationships are, for example, they say the best gift the father can give his son is to love the son's mother. The father should love the mother more than the daughter. Mother should love the husband more than the son. And the love should flow from the parents to the children. That is a skewed relationship. Based on these functional, dysfunction, we look at family types. I would put 5 types of families: the chaotic, the cuddling, the controlling, the codependent family, and the last, the cultivating family. And we'll see each of these families. The chaotic family is, there's a lot of, the picture itself will tell you, lot of lack of organization. There's no schedules of rising, sleeping, eating, where they clutter and uncleanliness, crowded and conflict, and parents are inconsistent. If one parent parents in one way or disciplines in one way, the other parent will discipline the opposite way. And therefore, one looks at London, the other looks at Tokyo. This becomes a chaotic family. Secondly, the controlling family. Structure is overly rigid. Law controlling, here you are what we call the authoritarian parenting. Overly rigid, law overrides love. Tone is authoritarian, dictatorial, fault-finding, overcritical. Now, when you do this, ask yourself, which type of family is yours? What type is your family? Third, the cuddling family, the opposite of a controlling family. They never confront, errors are ignored, discipline is lacking, parental authority is lacking, children take control, and parents are like friends. Parents should be friendly, but should not be like friends, because then you cannot control. And this is happening especially with single parent families, especially with the one child families. The cuddling family is becoming more and more predominant today. Then we have the codependent family. Strong conformity, they are dependent. One child is dependent very much on one of the parents, or the mother is so much dependent on the husband. Strong, it's a codependent relationship. Go with the flow. Self-direction is lacking. No goals are set. Parents are cold and over-possessive. I still remember I had a employee of mine who was studied so well, MBA and so on, but whenever he was married, but he had 2 children, but whenever he had a problem, he would go to he was already in his 35, he would go to his mother to get advice. So it's a codependent relationship. And then finally, we have the cultivating family. Cultivating family having beautiful ingredients of love and intimacy, individual responsibility. Everybody is given a responsible job in the house, responsible tasks. There is great love and intimacy. Parents have a structure and a discipline. They have a structure in the family. They have a system in the family and discipline also. There's love and obedience. There is a spirituality of a vision and a way of life. A family spirituality that has come over time, maybe family spirituality with core beliefs, with core rituals, spirituality with the important days of prayer and so on. So we have that is, and as a result, relative peace and result-based family relationships. All families ask yourself, therefore, when I come back to that, ask yourself which type of family you belong to. Chaotic, controlling, cuddling, codependent, or cultivating family. COVID would have changed some of the cultivating families into, codependent families. COVID would have also changed them into controlling families, and everybody is huddled up in a room. That would be very much controlling family, rather than it could be also a cuddling family. So it depends how the family has taken this crisis. All families face challenges during their life cycle. Some are expectable. Strains like retirement is something expected, or the children leaving the nest, leaving the home for jobs, for studies is expected, while others are sudden, like this COVID, or sudden terminal illness, or unexpected death of a family member. So, so there are two types. There could be untimely crisis or expected. Let's look at, therefore, now we shall look at how stress has created family stress. Is defined as disturbance in the steady state of the family system. The disturbance can emerge from outside, or the disturbance can emerge from inside. Outside, like COVID, unemployment, migration, today, disturbance, online, work from home, underemployment, losing, your salary cuts, or from inside the family, death, divorce, conflict. This impacts the emotional connection between family members, their mood, their well-being, as well as the maintenance of the family relationship. Therefore, family stress is therefore also defined as the change in the family's equilibrium. So stress happens with the equilibrium of the family is shifted. And how the family takes this. Some causes, I quickly put this because we have no time. I'm not going to read them, but these are some of the causes of family stress. You can just read it. These are a few. I will add a few more because I want to come to COVID and what COVID has created in reality. Let's look at some of the consequences of work from home, as back and neck problems, reduction in exercise, poor nutrition, with that uptake in cholesterol and sugar levels, reduced exposure to sunlight with a vitamin D deficiency. Most people who go for a regular checkup and the doctors say vitamin D deficiency, disturbed sleep patterns, feelings of isolation and inability to socialize, alcohol consumption has risen, uric acid levels in urine are higher, decline in musculoskeletal integrity through sedentary activity, and what I call brain fog. Brain fog is too much of online work creates brain fog. I know one of my young priest is doing his classes from 8:30 in the morning to 7 o'clock in the evening on some days. Other days from 8:30 to 5 o'clock. Memory problems, lack of mental clarity, poor concentration, confusion with the result of burnout. Consequences of study from home. Let's look at our children. What struggles they have. Lack of motivation, self-discipline and time management. Screen time affects their vision. Lack of social interaction and friendships resulting in lack of developing social skills, empathy, cooperation, and setting boundaries. Attention span goes down and hyperactivity goes up. Lack of outdoor activity and games. Emotional fatigue. Reduced exposure to sunlight again. Irritability and emergence of conflicts. And once again, brain fog with too much of online work and assignments and exams and postponement of exams and so on. Some strategies I would like to give to cope with family stress during COVID maybe. First of all, know your own stress cues. When you are stressed, do you become forgetful, short-tempered, clumsy, or something else? Think about what gets your attention. And therefore, observe your stress cues or ask someone else to observe your stress cues and give you a feedback. This is know your own stress. Know your stress in your body, in your mind, and where do you experience that stress in your body? Is it at the chest? Is it in the stomach? Is it on your lower back? Is it on your shoulders? Know your stress cues. Second, take time to do something that is meaningful, relaxing, and fun to you and your family. What are your fun activities? This is something very, very important, I think, during COVID and post-COVID times. Third, practice deep breathing or mindfulness. Deep breathing. Because if you are in touch with your breathing, you will be in touch with your emotions. You will be in touch with your thoughts. Is your breathing fast? Is your deep breathing slow? Is your deep breathing even paced? It will give you a cue about your stress levels. So practice deep breathing. When you practice deep breathing, you will get into mindfulness. Every day morning, at least 3 times. COVID especially, I have been infected by COVID. They have taught me deep breathing for the lungs. And I think it's a great exercise. This deep breathing has helped me to come back to certain mindfulness. Get enough sleep. Do people sleep enough? 8 hours of sleep or a short power nap in the afternoon. Accept your emotions and feelings. Noticing whether you're sad, anxious, and naming those feelings is something very, very important. Are you anxious? Are you depressed? Are you stressed? When someone dies in your family, what happens to you because of COVID? When your neighbor, somebody is lost his job, what happens to you? Consider the emotional needs of your family members and nurture relationships. Don't think of only your needs, emotional needs, but think of the others' needs in your family. Think of in the community. Think of spend quality time with them and respond to the others' needs. Give them opportunities. Each member of the family has his or her needs met in the family, feels loved and wanted, and has opportunities to develop his or her talents, abilities, and interests. Conserve your energy for things you can control. Don't go back and regret and ask, what if that I had done that? What if I had not gone? I got COVID when I traveled to Bangalore. What if I had not gone in that car? What if is a wrong statement? What can I do? What shall I do? In the sense, rather than what if, what positive things can I do to restore? Process of restoration, healing, return to normal. How can I return to normal in a positive way? Eighth, develop or use your support system. Your support system. Who are your support system in your family? Is it your neighbor? Is it your friend? Is it social media? Is it messaging? Is it writing emails? Is it looking at YouTube videos, something that are positive? TEDx talks, maybe doing online courses. So what are your support system that will help you bounce back? And laughter is the best medicine. So laughter or fun, do you laugh at yourself? Therefore, healthy body, healthy mind is a healthy human, happy human. Focus on your health and the health of others in your family. And therefore, I would say, are you doing enough exercise? Do you eat nourishing food? I think COVID, one thing has brought us back to eat nourishing food. Nutrition has become very important for us rather than fatty foods, rather than oily foods. We have stopped eating junk food. But are we exercising, to get back the oxytocin in the brain, to get back the brain functioning in positive levels? Therefore, my dear friends, this is family resiliency. Is family, I will quickly go because we want questions. Family resilience. Resilience is a big word today. Resilience is, am I able to bounce back? Am I able? And family as a system to bounce back. If you have good belief systems, good strengths, good resources, good support systems, core beliefs, good relay, if your subsystems are functioning well of your family, if you have kept good boundaries, if you have good feedback mechanisms, then you have a resiliency factor. Therefore, how the family organizes itself, how it retains its cohesion, how openly it communicates and problem solves together to cope with the threat, largely forecasts its ability to recover. An affirming belief system aids the process. The support of a network of friends, extended family members, employees and fellow employees, and the availability of community resources often contribute to family recovery. Even chaotic, disorganized, abusive, and multi-problem families have resources like rootedness, intimacy, and so on. And therefore, I want to say that there are 7 C's of resilience: competence, confidence, connection, character. I will not read it because we want questions. When you're doing competences, when you have skills, when you have the right attitudes, when you do things right, the confidence to navigate, think out of the box. Connections is very important. Connections with other people and friends and collaborators. Character, sense of right and wrong. What is right and wrong? And contribution. Do you think of the other? During the COVID, a lot of people thought of the other. Frontline warriors thought of the other. Frontline workers thought of the other. The nurses, the doctors, the police force, and NGOs, faith-based organizations, religious, priests, thought of the other, contribution, and therefore it helped us bounce back, helped us to be resilient. Or if we could not do, we collaborated, we contributed in terms of money. Coping, People who possess a variety of healthy coping strategies. What are your coping strategies when there's a crisis? And control. How do you manage control? To understand privileges and respect. Make wise choices. When you make wise choices, you have a sense of control. So finally, my dear friends, a healthy family is one in which each member of the family is valued and respected. One in which each member of the family feels safe and secure. One in which each member of the family is supported, comforted, encouraged, guided, and challenged to grow. Pope Francis beautifully says, above the doorway of family life are three expressions. Me, I, thank you, pardon me. Good social skills. Healthy families don't just happen, they are created and cultivated. Making love a reality is hard work, work that requires intentionality, sacrifice, and commitment. The same is needed to produce a healthy family. So thank you very much. We will now take questions and
Dear friends, it's the time now for interaction. We have 10 to 15 minutes and welcome to ask questions. Please click on raise hand sign to ask questions and unmute before you speak, but be brief.
Good evening, Father.
Good
That was
evening.
a beautiful session. Recently, due to a lot of workloads, we feel heavy, especially we feel like stressed too much, and then we get a headache. What would be some of your suggestion to get better relief from all those things?
I think basically you have workload and you have targets. You're working for a corporate. What are you working for?
Working for the educational institutions.
Okay, education. And you have a lot of online. I'm sure you have a lot of it. And therefore, there are a lot of targets and there is no face-to-face interaction. For you to know what is causing the stress, really. What is causing the stress? I think basically to find out in your own body, where is the stress located first? I said, take the cue, where is it located in your body? Is it, you said headache. Okay. Now then you ask yourself, where are you giving enough time to relax? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you doing enough exercise? Is there enough oxygen intake? Some of you are sit in closed doors, closed rooms. Is there enough oxygen intake? If one of our students, priest, is studying the MCOM, if he's 8 hours in his room, the oxygen levels are not going to be there. Okay. So therefore, to ask yourself what is missing. Second, do you get enough time to relax, recreate? Do you give enough time to exercise so that you have enough energy back to do that stressful work that is there? You have to do that stressful work in this COVID times, can't help it. Otherwise, you'll lose your job. So you have to keep the job. Competition is so severe, correct? And therefore, you have to keep your job going. That is very stressful. So you should think how you take time out into going into relaxation, exercising, relating, connecting, keep your body moving. Don't sit too long sedentary. There's a book called Ikigai in that which, study about Japanese people who live up to 120 years. And they said, what makes them very happy and live long is three things. One is they keep moving. Second, they are very connected. Second, third, they have positive attitudes and resilience. So therefore, positive attitudes, how do you do this?
Thank you, Father. That was a great suggestions. Yeah.
There's one more question from Gen C. On the chat box.
Yeah, I got it.
and youth.
Young children and youth are losing interest in academic and no discipline pattern with regard to timing. How can we motivate them as mentors or as parents or teachers? Now, Sister Jansi, I think what we have to do is I tell our people here, first of all, we have to motivate our parents before we motivate our children. Because I think children, parents basically do not know parenting skills. And I said, no, the whole difficulty is that they have got into what is called authoritarian parenting or permissive parenting rather than healthy parenting. Either they control too much or they just leave the children. This is the biggest difficulty. Now, their lose interest in academics and no discipline pattern is, first of all, asking parents to give them timeouts, free, relaxation, at least weekends. So there is something that is that because they are all the time at home. Second, for the schools also, schools have become, only academics. Now, nothing more. They have no time. They only give academic classes. No, I think in their 45 minutes class or 1 hour class, the children's attention span is only 20 minutes. You can't do more than 20 minutes. Do 20 minutes of it, but mix it up with maybe a story, with a joke, maybe with an activity and so on. So that there's also one thing called, in some schools today, we have what is called no class. No class, that class is only you can ask any question on anything in the world to the teacher. It's a fun class. So you are breaking the monotony of a class. We had that on Saturdays, which we called the Nali Kali. They had no bag, Now they don't have a bag, but there are plenty of online stuff. You just want to finish your syllabus. And this is the problem. Ultimately, children lose interest. They are not online with you. They are offline. You may think they are online. They are not. So therefore, how do we motivate parents? And how are we creative in our online methods of teaching? I think is a big, we need alternate approaches of teaching and learning. This is a big challenge for all education institutions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roshni has raised the hand. Roshni.
Who is that?
Good evening, Father. This is
Yes,
Rose.
good evening.
I really loved your session, especially the types of families that you've mentioned about. And when you asked us to introspect the kind of family that we are in, I found myself very confused because I see that I have a little of everything here. So is it, because I know that if you're overdoing certain aspects of this, then you fall into that category. So is it wrong to cut a slack on a cultivating family? For example, sometimes you break rules, sometimes there is no order in the family. So is it wrong or is it okay? What do you suggest?
See, what I'm trying to say is that although I've given you the 5 types of families, that is, chaotic, controlling, cuddling, and codependent and cultivating. What happens is certain situations can create and make you into a cuddling family or a controlling family. COVID has created, all the people huddled up in a room, and the man has lost his job, and the woman is, nagging him, or he is nagging her, and so on. It flows into that. It naturally becomes a chaotic family. Correct?
Yeah.
If everybody has lost a job, they are huddled in the room. There's no money to eat. Naturally, it's going to be a chaotic or a controlling family. So therefore, do they have the resources to come back to a cultivating family? This is the issue. For a family therapist is how do we, or a family counselor is how do we really bring back people to a cultivating family from a chaotic or a controlling. Controlling family, you have to focus on the parenting pattern of the parents. For a cuddling family, you have to focus on the parenting pattern of the parents. You can change it to a cultivating family, right? But chaotic family, because of situation, circumstances, it hits and creates and therefore it's fine to have a little of it. Cultivating family, I don't think everybody has a cultivating family all their life. There are ups and downs, just as there are ups and downs in experiences in family and in marriage. Marriage also, there are ups and downs, and therefore it flows. Ultimately, I forgot to tell you that out of the 3 subsystems that I said, spousal, parental, and sibling, which is the most important? The spousal subsystem. If the spousal subsystem breaks down, parental naturally will break down, the sibling will break down, the extended family subsystem will break down. Have I answered you?
Thank you, Father. That was very helpful.
Olga has one question in the chat. Then Naveen has raised a hand. Olga.
Olga's, I don't, okay.
Okay.
How can WFH and SFH be respected in the family? WFH and SFH is not the ideal situations. I don't think it should be ideal. It is not an ideal situation at all, especially for people who are economically poor. You know, it is not. But this is going to come to state. WFH corporates are liking WFH because they don't need to rent buildings. They save. They are going to give people furniture and so on. I know of people. The corporates are giving them furniture and say you work from home. But people are working overnight and they are killing their marriage and killing their families. So it's not an ideal situation. COVID, yeah, but beyond COVID, I don't think. If there's a hybrid model, it's fine, but this is not, it's not going to help us in social area. We are social animals. We need social, we need to recreate, we need to move out, we need to connect with people. Therefore, it's not an idea. Even worse still for smaller children studying from home is not an idea. Therefore, how do we respect? We respect because of today we respect it because our life is more important than the family. We want, therefore, we respect. We understand that COVID can infect our little ones, so the government is not allowing. But can the government think of alternate approaches? Is lockdown the only solution? Was it the only solution during migration? How many families lost their lives? How many lost their livelihoods? Did the government worry about that? Or second wave, if the government was only a little more careful, you know, in terms of being ready for the second wave or now the third wave. This is, I think, would enhance family. But also for the families to understand that this is a situation and so develop certain skills and attitudes that I mentioned in my last dealing with stress. I think those points that I mentioned would be helpful. Yes. Joseph, you can take the next one.
There are some more questions are there, but
Yeah.
It's the time now.
Yeah.
I think they can
take
ask
one last one.
Yeah.
You choose. You choose.
We can take the first one only.
Which one?
One.
Take one person's.
Maria de Souza.
Person
how can the wife and little child manage with a drunkard? That is the.
Okay. How can the wife and the little child manage with the drunkard husband? Now, this is a big problem, you know, to understand how the family is dysfunctional. One way to ask is how this wife and little child is unable, because this little child will repress its emotions and I'm sure cling to the mother. And when the father is, whether the father is alcoholic and whether he is violent alcoholic, and he beats the wife. Second is, how does she get a support system? It's very important that she gets a support system. She gets enough internal resources as well as external resources to deal with the drunken husband and not to be an enabler at all. To support, yes, not to take responsibility. Oftentimes, the husband does not take responsibility and will drink because he does not want to take responsibility. So how to make him more responsible? One way the best way we say when we deal with therapy with alcoholics is we have to find out who is the person with that alcoholic who has control over the alcohol. Oftentimes it's the employer or a close friend of his. To go through him, the employer can control the alcohol. The wife may not be able to. Therefore, through the employer, control. And also to study how the subsystems have become dysfunctional in the family. And what is this child? I don't know how old is this child, but the wife needs more resources, both internal. Maybe she needs to go into counseling and get some resources. Thank you.
Dear friends, it's almost 1 hour we are together here, and the heart whelming to see such a great response and participation. It's the time now to conclude. Before we conclude, few words of thanksgiving. On behalf of all of you and Fatima Retreat House community, we extend our hands to thank Father Dionysius Vaz, provincial of Karnataka Jesuit Province, for enlightening us with his insights, challenging us with his questions, and provoking us with his reflections. It was really well prepared, well defined, well studied, and well presented, and also informative talk. Thank you, Father Diane. We thank Aloysius College community for helping us to host this webinar, and Brother Owen and Mr. Stephen for technical assistance. And special thanks to Father Maxim Miskit, Superior of Fatima Retreat House, and all the committee members for hosting this webinar. Thank you, Fathers. A great and special thanks to all of you for your overwhelming support by way of participation. Some over Zoom, some over Facebook, and some others on YouTube. Thanks, and thanks to all of you. Soon we'll be back with many more webinars. Let's be in touch. For your information, our retreat house is open for the retreats, groups as well as individuals. And this webinar will be available on Facebook, YouTube, and also our website. You can make best use of it. The final words now over to Father Maxim, Superior of Fatima Retreat House, Mangalore.
Thank you, Father Diane, for spending your precious time with us. Thanks for enlightening and motivating us with your wonderful insights. I'm sure all have benefited by your talk. Thank you, Diane, so much. Thank you very much. Special thanks to all our participants. Thank you very much. Our next webinar will be in the month of October. Date and time will be informed to you later in the month of October. God bless you and have a wonderful evening.